let's look at another way of dealing with unwanted thoughts. I made a video about this recently. I think it was called Silencing the Inner Critic, and it's one of the videos that I've had the most and the best feedback about. So if you haven't looked at that, it might be worth you doing it. And basically the idea was, for people who get unwanted thoughts and they can hear them in their head, the idea is to just change the sound of the voice that they're hearing. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole strategy again. If you haven't looked at it, you can find the whole thing by looking on the Facebook page and finding that video, Silencing the Inner Critic, or you can find it on the website, and it'll be in the section on Facebook archives. But today's strategy is more applicable to people who tend to think in pictures rather than words. And we will do a combination of all of them, but it's which one is your preference, which one do you do most, or actually which one are the unwanted, which way are the unwanted thoughts presenting themselves. Now, have you ever been to the seaside, maybe one of those seaside arcades, and seen a game called Whack-a-Mole? I absolutely love this. They say it's for kids. I'm convinced it's for adults, really. And what it is, it's a big wooden board with about 12 circular holes in it. And you put in your £1 or your £2, whatever it costs these days, and then randomly a little plastic mole sticks its head up, does a 360-degree pirouette, and then disappears again. And these are appearing randomly. You don't know where the next one's going to be. So the idea is you get your rubber mallet, and every time a mole pops its head up, you whack it, and you get a point for every one that you hit. Kids love it. Kids get really, really into it. Adults tend to be a bit more staid when they're doing it, and they very politely and gently whack all the moles. I'm convinced that when you start to get more into that mindset of having fun with it like children do, we can get so much benefit from this. I'm convinced if they put these whack-a-mole things in work canteens and they didn't charge you £1 to do it, and after you've had your lunch you can just spend a few minutes whacking some moles, I'm convinced there'd be less people taking time off work through stress. But anyway, I'm going off topic quite a bit here. So the whack-a-mole strategy for dealing with unwanted thoughts is really simple. I'm sure you've already figured it out. Is whenever you get a thought coming into your head that you don't want there, imagine what it looks like. If you want to imagine it as a plastic mole, that's fine, but however you imagine that, you just then got to imagine that you've got a mallet, a rubber mallet, and in your head you're going to whack it. And the more that you engage your senses, the more this and faster this is going to work for you. So in your head, don't just imagine a picture of a mallet. Imagine yourself really swinging it and going for it, and imagine the sound that it makes. The more senses you invoke here, the better it's going to work for you. And you can get creative with this as well. And the more that you get creative, once again, the faster and better it is going to work. And this is really good if you get a repetitive unwanted thought that comes up again and again in a similar situation. So let's imagine that I've got a person with me who has to make presentations at work, and every time they're about to do that, a little thought pops into their head that says, what if you trip over? What if you forget what you're about to say? What if you make a fool of yourself? So what I'll do is I'll get them to put themselves as if they're back in that situation, either sitting down or standing up, whichever would be really happening at the time. And I'll get them to talk through this situation as if it's happening to them now. They're using present tense language. Okay, so I'm sitting in the room at work, and I can see the projector on the wall, and I can see my boss sitting over there, and see all my colleagues sitting over here. And I'm thinking, in a minute I've got to get up and make my presentation, and this thought comes into my head, you're going to mess this up. As soon as that thought pops into their head, I'm going to encourage them to jump up out of their seat and to swing their arm and go whack, and to whack that thought, to see what it looks like and to whack it. And as soon as they've done that, got to replace it with something more empowering. And that might be something like, I'm getting better at making presentations. I'm learning to control my breathing when I'm doing presentations. Whatever it is, just something that's more empowering than the thought that's popping in automatically. And I'll get them to run this again and again, and every time, as soon as they see that thought popping into their head, jumping up and whacking it and shouting out whatever they're going to do. The more you engage your senses, the faster this is going to work for you. What I would really encourage you to do is to get creative with it. I've just given you 2 examples of ways that you can use this. There are as many ideas as there are people in the world, because we'll all do this slightly differently. The more creative that you get with this, and the more interactive that you get with this, the faster and the more permanently your brain will learn. Let me know how you get on with it.